So welcome everyone to our Trash Trapping in Europe workshop. This is our third regional workshop hosted by the International Trash Trap Network. And we are very grateful to all of you for taking the time to attend our event today. And we really look forward to getting to know you a bit better throughout the next couple of hours. So I'll introduce myself first off. So my name is Hannah de Front. I manage the International Trash Trap Network, who's hosting today's event. And I'll be facilitating for most of the workshop today. The ITTN is led collaboratively between two organisations, so the University of Toronto Trash Team and Ocean Conservancy. And so we'll also have some other members of, we also do have some other members of our team on the call today. So from the U of T Trash Team, we have Susan Debiceni and Rafaela Gutierrez. And Susan leads our volunteer engagement and community programs, and Rafaela leads our social science and educational programs. And we also have Sarah Weller from Ocean Conservancy, who some of you may know if you've ever taken part in the International Coastal Cleanup. Sarah is Senior Manager of the International Coastal Cleanup, and so is our expert in all things cleanup, community cleanup, and data. So now for what we have coming up in today's workshop. So in this workshop, we'll be sharing lots of information about trash trapping to equip you with practical knowledge that you can apply in your local scenarios to implement and run impactful trash trapping programs. So we'll start off by speaking about trash trapping in the context of tackling plastic pollution. So how trash trapping can supplement community cleanup, how it can be a centerpiece for community education and outreach, and as a mechanism for data collection to inform upstream solutions. We'll then hear from some case studies of trash trapping efforts in Europe to share some of the technologies that are currently in use and details of those specific programs. And then after this, we'll have a short 5-minute break in the middle of the workshop. And then after that, we'll jump straight in to our workshop activity, where you'll be able to share some of your thoughts and perspectives about cleanup and trash traps. And then finally, we will end by sharing our recipe for trapping trash. So some of the things that we've learned over the last few years from our experiences, and we'll share within that some of the ITTN's free resources that you can use to support your programs. And then we'll close up with Sarah, who will share a quick intro to our CleanSwell data collection app and our global database of cleanup data. And as I mentioned, we're very lucky to have a couple of guest speakers joining us today. So we have Ramon Oster, who's founding director of Clear Rivers, which is a non-profit organisation tackling the plastic pollution crisis by catching river plastics before they reach the open waters. They also organise cleanups and educational workshops and recycle the litter they collect into new products. We also have Anna Pessoa, who is business development and project manager at the Great Bubble Barrier, which is a fast-growing social enterprise that develops and uses bubble curtain technology to capture plastic pollution in rivers. And before we get cracking, some quick housekeeping notes. So we do have time built in for Q&A throughout today, and our team will be able to facilitate any questions that you have. And you can type those in the chat, or you can also raise your hand using the reactions button on Zoom, and then we can you can unmute yourself and ask a question. But also please share your thoughts throughout the workshop in the chat if you wish, and you can follow us on social media and share your thoughts with us during or after the workshop as you want to. We love hearing from all of you, so please stay in touch. All right, so let's see if this works. Before we get going, I just wanted to ask one quick question for everyone to get an idea of what everyone's kind of hoping for the workshop today. So we're going to be using Mentimeter for this. So you can scan the QR code using your phone, or you can go to the web page at the top and type in the code, which I can't see because of my screen sharing bar at the top. But please, if you can, access that web page and just give us some insight into what your goals are for today's workshop, or what you're hoping to learn or talk about. And I give everyone like a minute or so to do that. Thank you, Rafi, for sharing the link. Is it working? Might be working. Well, no one knows what the goals are.
I put the response in, but it obviously is not.
It's not updating.
Shown.
Oh, that's a shame. Oh, we can check back in at the end of the workshop and see what everyone's goals were. If not, I don't want to hold us up too much.
Sorry, if you open the link, I can see the answers. Actually.
It's probably because I'm trying to
Yes, so if you open again, yes, close and open, you will see it.
Okay.
Technologies.
Okay, so we have some great responses. So we have meet and learn from folks in Europe who have trash traps in action, learn from like-minded organizations, learn and get inspiration, learn about activities on removal and recycling of litter, hear about projects in Europe, inspiration for future trash trapping methods in my country. Great. These are all great responses. Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry for the delay in trying to get them up. All right, so thanks for that. So as I mentioned, I'm going to start off by sharing a little bit of context about why we're here today and a bit about how we formed the ITTN. So bear with me and I will just share my presentation. Sorry, my laptop has decided to be a little bit slow, just as I'm trying to present, which is great. Okay. Okay. So hopefully you can all see my screen. So we're going to dive straight into talking about trapping trash as part of the solution to local and global plastic pollution. So if you're attending this workshop, chances are you're already very aware of the extent of plastic pollution across the globe. As you all know, it's a global issue and it's something that is present across all global ecosystems from the top of Mount Everest to the bottom of the deep sea. And we know that plastic waste will continue to enter our environments, even with current actions today. And every year, it's estimated that approximately 9 to 23 million tons of plastic enters global aquatic ecosystems. So that's oceans, rivers, and lakes. And plastic in the environment causes harm. So it's pervasive, it breaks down incredibly slowly, meaning once it enters the environment, it stays there for a very, very long time. It can break down into smaller and smaller pieces, eventually becoming micro and nanoplastics. It can be transported for thousands of miles from where it originated, and it threatens important ecosystems and wildlife through entanglement, ingestion, chemical impacts, the spread of invasive species, and more. So obviously we want to do something about it. So what can we do? So generally, actions for tackling plastic pollution can be divided into 3 broad categories, which are to reduce plastic production, to reduce plastic waste, improving waste management, and cleaning up mismanaged waste from the environment. And in 2020, myself and several colleagues investigated how we can best use these 3 strategies to have the greatest impact in reducing global plastic emissions to the aquatic environment. And so we compared different levels and combinations of these actions for hundreds of countries worldwide. And what we found was, although plastic pollution is a global issue, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. So of course, we should aim to tackle the problem at the source, with plastic reduction and waste management taking priority. However, as long as we continue to pollute and as long as plastic is entering the environment, we need to clean it up to mitigate further ecological harm. Because without cleanup, we're effectively agreeing to leave this pollution in the environment, knowing the harm that it can cause. So we need a combination of all these three strategies happening at once. And we also need solutions that are tailored to local scenarios, as the sources, the impacts, and management actions will differ depending on where plastic is coming from, how it's managed, and where it ends up. We also know that volunteers and organisations around the world are already cleaning up thousands of tons of waste, plastic waste every year. But science shows that because plastic pollution is increasing every year, we also need to increase our cleanup efforts to tackle it. So our question is, how can we do this? And that's where trash traps come in. So trash traps also go by many other names. So this includes cleanup technologies, plastic capture devices, but whatever they are called, we call them trash traps. They are devices designed to collect and divert plastics and other waste from the environment. So be that a river, a lake, a coastal ocean, a stormwater system, or a beach. And categories of trash traps include stationary skimmers, drones, booms and barriers, storm drain catch basins, vacuum devices, and skimmer vessels as well. And there are a variety of technologies available. And this is actually a great thing because it means there are lots of different options for different needs and different scenarios. So why do we like trash traps so much? Well, using trash traps, plastic pollution can be removed before it travels downstream. So this prevents further harm and prevents things like entanglement in vegetation, ingestion by wildlife, and the generation of microplastics, which are notoriously difficult to remove. They're also a great addition to community cleanups because they can get to places that people can't access due to logistical or safety reasons, like fast-flowing waterways. As I mentioned, there are lots of different types of trap, and some cleanup technologies can function passively 24 hours a day. Some capture macroplastics and larger debris, and some focus on collecting floating microplastics, and some can capture both. By capturing microplastics, they can remove the plastic that manual cleanups can miss. Trash traps are also very exciting. Some of them are robots. People love robots, and people love seeing these unusual technologies in their environment. So they become a great focal point for public education. To increase awareness and understanding about plastic pollution, they can become a centerpiece for talking to communities, and by talking to people about what the trash traps are, why they're there, how they function, how they fit into kind of broader strategy for reducing plastic pollution. It can demonstrate to people that plastic pollution is a local issue, and cleanup is one part of a strategy to tackle it. You can also use trash traps for things like public events. Like you can see some photos on the left here of Rafaela from our team at a trash trap dive, where people helped us to dig through our waste that we collected. They can also be used to facilitate educational programs, and you can also have fun signage to educate people, like Inspector Seabin, he's called on the right in the photo. And when people help and get involved and see their waste up close, it kind of helps the problem to really hit home, and often gives them motivation to carry on being involved in tackling this problem and doing something about it, or to go on and do something independently themselves. Through regular collection of waste, trash traps are also great monitoring tools for data collection. So you can use them to understand the pollution that you're finding in your waterways. So you can document the weight, the count, the categories of the items that you collect, and identify the most common pollution items and understand their sources, which then informs management actions. Data from trash traps also can provide evidence to inform upstream solutions, for example, national legislation. So in 2021, the Canadian government introduced a ban on 6 types of single-use plastics, and this decision was informed by cleanup data, was used to identify the most common pollutants to be included in the ban. And cleanup data can also monitor the efficacy of solutions over time. So as an example, here, this is Mr. Trash Wheel, who lives in Baltimore Harbor, and they collected data on what Mr. Trash Wheel collected and found that polystyrene foam was a really common item. And this informed a ban on disposable polystyrene foam products in the city of Baltimore in 2019. And then during the year following the ban, data from Mr. Trash Wheel revealed an over 80% decrease in the number of foam containers collected from the harbour. So it was able to both inform and motivate that policy and then monitor its effectiveness. So as you can see from these examples, trash traps can be a great way to capture plastic pollution. And when used in a thoughtful way, trash trapping programs can have additional co-benefits that have a real impact to reduce local plastic pollution in the short and long term. And so this leads me to the ITTM. So in recognising the potential of trash traps for local management, in 2019, the U of T trash team, who are based in Toronto, Canada, collaborated with our local ports organisation, Ports Toronto, to deploy sea bins in Toronto Harbour. And every year since then, we've deployed our sea bins throughout the summer months when the lake's not frozen, and we empty them regularly and collect data on the quantity and types of litter that we capture. And in doing this, we can measure the positive impact of the sea bins and inform policy by understanding our local sources of waste. And we found from the data collected in 2021, for example, we estimated that our 6 sea bins diverted over 33 kilos of debris in 6 months, which is equivalent to the weight of over 3,000 plastic bottles. We also found multiple ways to use the trash traps as a tool for education. So we included them in our school lessons and when discussing when we were discussing solutions. And then we also shared a lot about what we found on social media. So this photo is a bit pixelated, but it's a fat berg and it got a lot of attention because obviously it's not very nice. We also collected data and identified common items that were captured in our sea bins, and this data has been used over the year to inform our other research projects run by the trash team to manage those forms of pollution and prevent them. So for example, you'll see on this top 10 list that cigarette butts are one of the top items that we found, and this led us to run an educational campaign in the city of Toronto to decrease cigarette butt litter and reduce this pollution that we're finding in our waterways and in our trash traps. And the U of T trash team aims to use our local projects as a sort of foundation to build capacity globally. So our local success in Toronto led us to think about how to scale up trash trapping efforts internationally and support the development of other programs around the world that are impactful and sustainable. And that is how the ITTM was formed. So to expand our reach and become part of a global effort, we partnered with our friends at Ocean Conservancy, who have great international links through running the International Coastal Cleanup for many years. And we formed the International Trash Trap Network, or the ITTN, you'll hear me say throughout today, because it's far less of a mouthful. So the ITTN aims to unite local groups through our global initiative to not only remove plastic waste from the environment, but also to engage communities, gather data to quantify our impact and inform and motivate upstream solutions. And so by combining our efforts, we think that we can better measure our collective work to clean up plastic waste and amplify the impact of local programs. And today, we largely do this through sharing of information and free resources to support new and ongoing programs. And I'll be sharing some more details of those with you towards the end of the workshop. But for now, I'm going to leave you with a little update of where we're at today. So since our launch in 2021, we now have over 100 trash traps active, local groups using 100 trash traps in over 4 countries, using 11 different types of technology. So in 3 years, we've cleaned up over 370,000 kilos of trash, including large and small items. And we hope to continue this growth in the future to support trash trap users as best we can to utilize those additional benefits of tracking trash. So I hope that's provided you all with a good background to today's workshop and motivation for joining the ITTN or starting your own trash tracking program. So while I'm going to pause here, we don't have a formal Q&A session just yet, but if there are questions in the chat, I can answer those. But in the meantime, I will pause here and continue introducing our first guest speaker for today. Okay, so our first speaker for today is Ramon Nosta, who is founding director at Clear Rivers. Ramon has become one of the professionals to approach this environmental disaster locally and effectively, retrieving marine litter in ports, and finding durable reuse of the plastic waste as building material for new floating nature landscapes. Initiating Recycled Park Rotterdam to capture plastic waste in the local harbour and preventing it from entering the North Sea. Within Clear Rivers, Ramon is fighting the further growth of marine litter in all possible ways with harbour cleanups, the use of passive litter traps, education and awareness programs, recycling floating debris, and the realisation of valuable new products with the recycled plastic. So thank you, Ramon, for joining us today.
Thank you, Handa. It was a really nice introduction. Thank you. So if I may, I'll jump to my presentation and start sharing my screen.
Yeah, please do.
So as Hannah already briefly introduced, we aim to have an overall approach towards plastic pollution. I started Clear Rivers about 10 years ago, so in 2014, mainly because I was getting really frustrated about the plastic pollution in my own hometown, Rotterdam, the Netherlands, where we saw a lot of plastic debris swirling around, not only in the river, but especially also in the port. And it really was not addressed. It was mainly ignored. And of course, Rotterdam, but especially also the port of Rotterdam, directly connects to the North Sea. So we saw a lot of plastics passing by, swirling around through the city, swirling around through the harbor, and then eventually disappearing. But of course, it was mainly ending up in the North Sea.
Ramon, I don't think we can see your screen if you are sharing.
Ah, okay. That's disappointing.
There you go, we can see it now.
Okay, thank you very much. So the easiest way to get started was just by doing the cleanups. So I started to do a cleanup every Saturday by myself. And then eventually, luckily, some people started to join me. So that already created some sense of collaboration and team spirit. But although, of course, we saw the effort of every time cleaning up a certain area, all very quickly we began to feel hopeless because we cleaned up an area and we came back 1 or 2 weeks later and it was already heavily polluted again. And of course, we were mainly cleaning up the river quays and we were not able to reach what was already in the water. So we thought that there might be a more effective way or more efficient way to also stop the plastic that was floating around in the rivers and in the harbor area. So we started to come up with the idea of implementing litter traps. Eventually, in installing the litter traps, we saw that also we needed to work against prevention. Because as I said, I've been doing this now for 10 years and the plastic just keeps on coming. So we thought, okay, how can we also stop it even more closely to the source? So we started to educate the young generation, but of course also the old generation. We have an active awareness program around it. And also we saw the need and the possibility to start recycling. First of all, to recycle what we are retrieving, but also now with our projects in Asia, we use recycling as a way of prevention. Because on some of the locations where also we are active, we see that plastics is being littered just simply because the circular economy or the circular reuse is not in place. So if we stimulate recycling, we can also stop or prevent plastics from being littered. In today's presentation, I'll mainly focus on the litter trap aspect. So when we spot or saw the need for the implementation of the litter traps, first of all, we had to deal with a lot of harbor conditions. So which basically means we had to design or develop an installation that could resist a wave impact of about 1 meter. It should be very sturdy anchored to resist also strong currents. It needed to work with the tidal changes, so the water going up. But we also needed to find a solution for change in stream direction, as we also have in the port of Rotterdam. And we thought that since we had to raise the budget ourselves, it would be good to find something which could be reasonable, affordable, or at least realized for a budget as low as possible. So what we have developed is a passive litter trap. So it requires no electricity, no power source at all. So we just install it, and the river and the wind take care of directing the plastics into the litter trap, as long as it is directed and positioned at the right location. So first of all, we looked for existing techniques, and we actually tried one in 2016, which gave a lot of difficulty. And then thought, okay, if we can't find an existing technology which is suitable for our conditions, then we'll start to develop our own. Well, all said and done, in 2017, we installed the first 3 litter traps simultaneously in different spots in the Rotterdam harbor, mainly to see how they could work also in different conditions. So we put one in the main river, we put one in a harbor, and we put one on an intersection of a harbor with the river. And the picture I'm showing you is one of the first, as we installed in 2017, one of the first prototypes, and luckily it's still active. There is no wear and tear in the system. We also thought that it could be beneficial for the circular economy to have them produced out of recycled plastics. So the majority of the material for the litter trap itself, it's recycled high density polyethylene, which makes it's very robust, but also very durable. And so far we thought, okay, also considering the cost, it would be good to have them emptied first of all by hand, which is something we're still doing up to today. So all 3 of the litter traps that we implemented in 2017, we're still emptying ourselves on a weekly basis. And in this, it's also important that most of them we positioned along the quay. So we go with a bike or we go with a van, and we reach them, we just scoop them empty. The litter trap itself, it works as such as I showed you in the schematic drawing. We have the litter trap itself, which is the black item, which mainly collects, but especially entraps the plastic debris. And then most of the time we use floating screens or floating booms to direct the plastics into our litter trap. And these litter traps, basically they need to be emptied on a weekly basis. So this is one of them we still have in Rotterdam. This is another one. These 2, they are positioned in a canal or in a river, actually with a lot of ship traffic. And the downside from this system is, of course, we cannot put the screens where there is a lot of ship traffic, but by positioning the litter trap as such that they are very well orientated towards the most frequent wind direction, they will still be able to catch the majority of plastics. And also what we do at some locations is that we put 2 on the upper sides of the river, so that when the river is being pushed alongside the quay of that river, of that canal, it will still eventually end up in one of those, or one of two of these litter traps. So these are 2 of them, and then this is the third, and the third has the luxury of spanning the full width of an harbor. So in this case, there is no leakage. Everything that will come into that harbor will eventually be blocked by the screens, and then from the screens, it will eventually be pushed into our litter trap. Then very, very quickly after the first installation in Rotterdam, we were asked to put a first litter trap in Belgium. This one is also installed in a canal. The canal really has a very limited width, but also a very high frequency of ships passing by. So in this case, all we could do is install a litter trap without an additional boom going into the canal or into the river. So in dimensioning, it's very limited, but because the canal has, let's say, is very straightforward, as being a linear canal with straight quays, and also by looking efficiently at the most common wind direction, we are still able to catch the majority of plastic going through this canal, just by simply putting it in a location where there was already an accumulation of plastic debris. And this litter trap is currently still being emptied by the Port of Brussels, who empty it, I think, 3 times a week. So 3 times a week it's as full as it shows in the picture. They are emptying it in a different way than we are doing it. They have a specialized vessel or a special boat that they put at the back of the litter trap, which in this case is the left of the slide, where we made an operable back door. So the triangle that you can see at the end of the litter trap on the left side, that is something that they can push down into the water surface. And then over that, they can simply drag all the plastic debris into their into the net that is attached to the boat. And in that way, I think they can empty it up in 5 minutes or so. So the process also a new way of emptying. And it's also something that we again then learn and can also adapt and implement in other international litter trap installations. Then after that, we were asked to start a pilot project in Budapest, Hungary. So it was the first litter trap that we installed in the Danube River. Also, this litter trap was pretty effective, but also we did have some difficulties in that, and that's also something that we learned to face later on. So of course, there is also a lot of plastic swirling around in the Danube River, unfortunately. But this circumstance made it extra difficult because there is a lot of driftwood, and with driftwood, I just mean entire branches, sometimes even half a tree, floating around, and that makes it complicated to retrieve the plastics. And for this occasion, we also use an existing structure of a floating pontoon. Floating pontoon is used to let the cruise ships dock. This allowed us to use an existing infrastructure. So the plastic debris which is floating along the quay is slowly guided by this red boom towards underneath the floating pontoon. And then at the end of the floating pontoon is our litter trap, in which then, of course, eventually all the debris is captured, and is also filled up very quickly. It's also in a couple of days is already full of plastic debris. Then in doing these projects and becoming more international, we saw the need to revise and redesign our litter trap. The redesign mainly is related to the dimensioning. So we squeezed the litter trap a little bit, which makes it a lot easier to transport. So the litter trap can be very easily put on a truck and transported over the road to any location where it's needed. But also this dimensioning fits into a shipping container. So also already we transported 4 litter traps overseas, just by putting them into a shipping container and transporting them cost effectively to remote locations. We improved the inner screen system a little bit. So when I started my presentation, I talked about tidal changes, but also change in stream direction. So what we learned from the first installations in Rotterdam is that normally you would catch plastic debris coming from the inland trying to float towards the sea. But what we saw or see in some locations being close to the sea erosion, that on some locations there is a change in stream direction, that also the water comes from the sea being pushed towards the inland. And then if you have captured the plastic inside your litter trap and the flow comes from the back, it was leaving our systems again. And now with this inner screen system, we can really entrap the litter inside the trap. Also an alteration that we did is that we make a standard operable back screen or back door, so that always you will be able to also empty the litter trap from the back if a boat or a ship is able to do so. That being said, that litter trap is now our most frequently installed litter trap, most frequently installed system. So we implemented already few of those more within the Netherlands. So this is another one that we really installed in the port of Rotterdam. It's installed in a port area where it's actually protecting a new nature area that they made behind the litter trap. It is an area in which we also previously held cleanups, and we saw that in this area a lot of debris was entering this port and being pushed onto the quay by the wind. And we informed the local government that when they had the plans to make this nature area, that if they would start developing that, it would completely be or get completely washed up by all the plastic debris. And fortunately, within the plans for that green area, they were able to involve the budget, but also the plan to involve our litter truck. This is another one that we installed in the Netherlands. It's Den Haag, also relatively smaller installation, but with the same principle. This litter trap is on the intersection of the Belgian and the Dutch border. So it's already Texas in the Ghent-Terneuzen channel, so it's really the channel coming from Ghent towards Terneuzen. We were approached by a local contractor who was doing the maintenance in this canal, and while he's doing the maintenance, unfortunately, he's faced with a lot of plastic debris washing up on the quays of the canal, and he reached out to us saying, okay, we're constantly are trying to pick up the trash from the quays. Isn't there a more efficient way? So they asked us to start doing an implementation of our litter trap. And also there, the litter trap is very effective, indirectly catching the plastics coming from Belgium, trying to enter the Netherlands, which also works as a cross-border approach. And it really supports or helps the local contractor in having a more effective way in collecting the plastics from the canal and being able to spend his time more efficiently. While we were installing the litter trap in Budapest, we were approached by a lot of people who started asking questions about what we're actually doing there. And the most common feedback we got from them is that, yeah, you should not be here, but you should actually go to Romania, because a lot of plastic pollution within Hungary actually comes from Romania. And then briefly after we opened the litter trap in Budapest, an organization from Romania reached out to us if we would be kind enough to make a proposal also for Romania. And now we have already installed 4 litter traps within Romania. Some of them also work as a cross-border relationship, where we install the litter trap inside Romania, but really close to the border to Hungary. So to prevent the litter, which was coming from Romania entering Hungary, to stop it on its way. This litter trap was also another learning experience for us. What we already learned in Hungary, but also our learning in Romania, is that also these rivers, they carry a lot of driftwood. So that in this case, we had to create an extra barrier or an extra screen to prevent these large objects of driftwood from hitting our litter trap or getting entangled in our booms. So that's also what you see, that in front of the boom that stops the plastic debris and guides it into the litter trap, we have an extra boom which stops or guides the driftwood towards the quay where it can be picked up. Back to Rotterdam, also another alteration or modification that we did to our litter trap is that we allowed another way of emptying by adding an inner basket. So this installation is done also for a local waste management company, which unfortunately has a lot of waste leakage, as you can see in the picture. They asked us to at least install the installation there to also prevent the leakage or to help them be more effective in catching what they are leaking. And they asked us to install this this basket that they can lift with a crane, which allows them to empty it more swiftly. yeah, as a relationship between our litter traps and our educational program, we are also challenging a lot of students, but also pupils to think along with us in how we can be more effective in approaching plastic pollution. One of the challenges that we made in the previous year is that we challenged over 1,500 Dutch pupils in how litter traps could be more effective or more efficient. The pupils divided into teams, which they made all different proposals, for which they also had to make a working prototype. And a few of these teams, they came up with the idea of adding a propeller or creating a new current for those situations where we are not able to put our screens. So when I showed you the litter traps that we have installed in Rotterdam, the first ones, is that our booms are always a limitation, is that we cannot put them anywhere where there's also the ship traffic. And these brilliant young minds, they came up with the idea that for those situations, we can also put a propeller engine in the water to create a new current that where the ships need to pass, there is a current which is, let's say, weak enough to not impact the ships, but strong enough to divert the plastics into a litter trap. And this is also now something that we are putting into practice. So we are actually using the ideas from those young pupils or young brilliant minds to also become more effective into the retrieval or stopping of plastic pollution.
Ramon,
Yes.
we are at time, so if you could please just, if you have a few more slides, then please
Yes,
just
yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm about to wrap up. So I was actually
Perfect.
done with the European projects, but I want to show you two of our Asian projects. So recently we installed three of our first litter traps in Andon, and I know today is about Europe, but basically I want to tell you or show you that also these Asian projects are really helping us in our learning experience, and how also we can become more effective in the plastic retrieval in the Netherlands or within Europe. Basically showing that this is one of the litter traps that we really put at the end of the river, so not inside the river as we were used to do in Europe, but this litter trap is already in the Bay Area, where also we are effective in stopping plastic pollution. Litter ports can also be used in Europe. And this is our just installed litter trap in Vietnam, which basically works the same as in Europe. But we had to use another way of anchoring our litter traps. So previously we were anchoring the litter trap always directly to the quay or with pillars. In Vietnam, we were not allowed. So in Vietnam, we for the first time used concrete anchor blocks to fix the position of the litter trap, and we learned that it's also successful. So in this, I kind of came to the conclusion of my presentation, and I hope it's clear that what Clear Rivers is trying to do.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. Wonderful. So we are short on time for Q&As now, but what I will say is if anyone has questions for Ramon while we continue through, please type them in the chat, and Ramon, if you can see them, please feel free to respond directly in there, or if we have some time later on, we can also share some of those there. But for now, we are going to continue on. So we now have Anna Pessoa as our second guest speaker. Anna is Business Development and Project Manager at the Great Bubble Barrier. She's an accomplished business development and advocacy expert with over 20 years of diverse experience in international trade, innovation, and sustainability. Currently, she leads initiatives at the Great Bubble Barrier as the Business Development and Project Manager, managing groundbreaking projects like the first bubble barrier in a tidal estuary in Portugal. Before this, Anna founded SOAS Global Business Development, where she guided startups in global market expansion. And her career has also included senior roles at Brazil's Ministry of Foreign Trade, and she and where she enhanced export competitiveness and led international negotiations. And Anna holds a master's in public policy and is also multilingual. So thank you very much, Anna, for being here. And I'll pass it over to you to present.
Great, thank you very much. Well, first, congratulations, Ramon, for the interesting technology. It's interesting that we're both from representing Dutch companies. This comes as no coincidence, I guess, because Dutch are very well known for being very dedicated to the water. So yeah, it's a pleasure. So our company, the Great Bubble Barrier, is also a Dutch enterprise. And today we're going to present the technology we've been deploying in Portugal. So it's the first one outside the Netherlands. And this is within a bigger consortium called Maelstrom. And I'm actually very happy to see that our advisor is also here today, Andrea Palatinas. So we just talked actually yesterday. So for her, it's going to be a bit repetitive, but I think you can all enjoy. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if this is working. Yes, can you all see it?
Yeah, we can see your slides.
Is it now in presentation mode?
Yeah, we can now.
Okay, great.
Looks good.
So this is Project Maelstrom. It's a big consortium with 14 institutions. And my focus today is going to be on the pilot that has been done in Portugal in a city called Vila do Conde. I'm also going to briefly describe the other pilot that was done in Venice. Yeah, so this is funded by program Horizon 2020, which is an EU fund to support different research and development projects. In this case, it's focused on marine litter, how to sustainably remove and how to manage the litter caught. So we have it's a multi-level. So the first step is, of course, to identify where marine litter is being, or ocean-bound litter is located, and then the technologies to remove it, and then how to recycle, and then marketize. Today, I'm going to be focusing on the removal technologies. We have basically two removal technologies. One is the bubble barrier that has been implemented in Vila do Conde, which is half an hour north from Porto in Portugal. And the other one is the robotic seabed cleaning platform, which has been implemented or tested a couple of times in Venice, in Italy. The bubble barrier is actually that the concept is quite similar to cleaner rivers, the litter trap that has just been introduced. The difference is that in some cases we do also need to use a boom, like you can see here, if it's very far from the quay. But usually mostly we use a barrier made of air bubbles. That's why it's called bubble barrier. We are focusing mainly on floating and submerged items, because of course we can cover the full width and depth because it's of course only air. So we can also bring the submerged items specifically from plastic to the surface, and because it's placed diagonally, it goes to the catchment system where it's going to be retrieved. It was very interesting. This project was a very interesting one because we had most of the funding already covered by Horizon 2020. It's usually funds 70% of private companies. And in this case, we then had to engage other stakeholders to get funding for the rest 30%. And it was also very intense work to engage the local municipality. So Vila do Conde came later on in the process, let's say. It's the first bubble barrier to stop plastic from flowing to the Atlantic Ocean. And the river that was chosen, Rio Ave, is one of the most polluted rivers with plastic in Portugal. And I wanted to show a bit what is being caught currently. As you can see, it's a lot of organic material, and then a lot of plastic pieces that come entangled in it. So it's quite challenging to do the sorting and the classification because you really have to go through the roots of the plants, the water hyacinths, or the organic material that comes. But that shows also how plastic pollution is taking place in our rivers, right? And this is, of course, there are bigger pieces that will break into microplastics, and there is already microplastic that is already there. Yeah. Also, the same way as the project that Hamon explained in Budapest, in this river, we also have a lot of big tree chunks. So it's also quite challenging for us in this very dynamic environment of an estuary to be placing this kind of technology. I'm going to show you a video from the bubble barrier. I'm not sure if you can hear it. Do you know, Hannah, if there is some restriction for that? Do I have to press any specific button?
There shouldn't be. You can give it a go and see.
Okay, let me know. You hear?
No, I can't hear anything.
No.
Um,
No, can you not hear it? I don't know, share sound. Yeah, I just found it.
okay.
We saw a lot of plastics here, those plastics that come the river and go to the sea, nobody catches.
Every river leads to an ocean and all oceans are connected. So what might flow here out to sea can end up somewhere around the world.
Project Milestone is a project with 14 partners. It's led by CNR. It's the biggest project funded by the European Union to stop plastic pollution in the ocean.
We're standing right next to the Rio Ave here in Portugal, in the city of Vila do Conde, and we're about to install our new bubble barrier. The bubble barrier is an innovative system which uses air bubbles to capture plastic trash in rivers. So we place a perforated tube diagonally on the bottom of the river, and then a lot of tiny air bubbles will start rising to the surface, and they created an upwards directed water flow, and this water flow can lift up plastic that's also underwater and bring it to the surface. With the help of the push of the river, it will all get pushed to the side and into our catchment system, which is where we then can retain it and then remove it from the water.
The role of the University of Malta and the Milestone project is to provide part of the electricity required by the bubble barrier technology using renewable energy technologies. So one technology which will be installed on a rooftop and another technology using a floating dock. From preliminary estimates, we think that the solar panels will cover at least 25% of the bubble barrier's energy requirements.
The river is very important for the local community. The main activities, fisher boats that go every day to fish and come back, and also the sport activities that are performed in the river. The biggest advantage of the bubble barrier is that it does not hinder the activities performed in the river.
So this bubble barrier is the first internationally. We have now systems in the Netherlands that work really well, but what we really want to do is make it accessible globally, because our problem that we're facing here is global, and the bubble barrier can be used in a lot more places around the world.
Yeah, so besides the partners from the project itself, you see also here some of the, like the municipality, the harbor authority, that have also been very active in implementing the project. Then I would go to the other technology that we have deployed as a pilot within this project, which is called the seafloor litter removal platform. This is then focused, as the name says, on the items that are in the bottom of the ocean or the river. It was done in Venice, which is like this estuary with the ocean coming in. And it's, yeah, mostly focused on replacing the work of divers. And of course, because it can carry a lot of kilos, a lot of weight, it's also very effective in mapping and then removing. I have shared some photos here just for you to understand the difference in terms of concept. So while you see in the bubble barrier in the estuary river, in the Ave estuary, how much organic material, how much small pieces of plastic were found. In this case, we're talking about items that have been in the water for a long time, as you can see by the biogrowth here, and also are very heavy material, right? So it's a totally different concept. Yeah, it's also working very well. I have a video, but I cannot integrate it in the presentation, so I can just, as I mentioned to Hannah, I can send it over to you, the presentation, so I can all check. And if possible, I would like to use this minutes we have left to talk a bit about the challenges. I don't know if only Ramon or people in the audience have experience with the litter traps. From our perspective, what has been very challenging in this project is the issue of ownership. So who would be in charge of cleaning rivers and ocean? Usually, if you talk to the municipality is going to say, oh, the water board, and the water board is saying, oh, this is not on my contract. You have to talk to someone else, and then the environmental authority. So everyone is a bit pushing out. So no one is really taking ownership of the problem, which leads, of course, to also a very challenging issue in terms of stakeholder engagement. You can talk to all of them, and still you don't have clarity of how much time in terms of how much resource in terms of time, money, dedication each organization is going to put. It becomes also a willing thing, right? If they're willing to do or not, they're not really usually obliged to do, or yeah. And then it also triples in terms of policy, right? What policy is missing? It's very interesting because yesterday we were discussing the reviewing the project with the advisors, and there was this question about costs, which is of course usually Ramon is probably also facing the same situation. How much does it cost? What is the cost? What is the efficiency? What are the cost benefits? And it's a different concept than you usually use for urban situations, urban waste management, right? So if the street is dirty, everyone assumes it should be cleaned. So you don't see this as a question being posed by the citizens. We're just using too much money from the public budget to clean our streets. We take it for granted that they have to be cleaned. While when we talk about riverine litter or marine litter, who's going to clean our beaches? Who's going to clean our rivers? Then this question pops up a lot more often. What are the benefits? How much are we paying for that? How much kilos are we catching? While it's still very unclear what is the size or what is the impact of the plastic pollution. How much is plastic pollution in fact damaging our environment? Those numbers remain quite unclear, but we get a lot of questions like, oh, should we be doing this? How much money should we be allocating for that? So I think it's also a matter of public authorities, really taking the lead and saying, okay, apparently we should be really doing something. So let's get this, let's get this done. I think if you go to the UN Plastics Treaty discussions, this issue also pops up there, right? So there are some countries basically saying it's a waste management issue, and then focusing more on the final end of the cycle, and others saying, oh, you just have to reduce in the upstream. But in the end, as probably everyone that's here knows, we probably have to do, or we certainly have to do both things, right? So reduce dramatically the production, reduce dramatically what is ending up in the river, and then still clean the leakage, clean the legacy. So I think those messages should be very clear by now for the policymakers. I'm not sure how far we are in this. So for me, it would be personally interesting to hear from you how you're experiencing that, also from the litter trap network, how your members are currently facing this, and how present is this in your agenda. That would be interesting to hear. And I would close the presentation there and then just open for discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna. That was great. And I love the mention at the end of the challenges, because that's very insightful for how a program runs and all the things you need to consider to make sure that everything runs smoothly. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
We
Thank
do
you.
have a couple of minutes now for questions, and Rafaela is going to keep an eye on the chat in case anyone has questions in the chat, but we can also open up the floor if anyone has questions that you'd like to ask verbally, then please do.
Hiya, hello. Oh no, seem to
I
I'm
can
not
hear.
sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Ah,
you.
there you are. I unmuted myself and then couldn't hear anyone else. So sorry. Yeah, I'm Tom. I'm from Waterwitch. We actually build trash skimmer boats, and there's a bit of a crossover with Ramon, I believe, because that one of your trash traps installed in Brussels was actually emptied by one of our boats. So I can actually, I've got a video I can actually share if you wanna, if you're interested.
Nice to hear and nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. So sorry, it's allowing me to.
You can share is it a link to a video? You can share it in the chat if you wanted to.
Yeah, I've got sort of a presentation that has the video on it. I'm just trying to share. I'm not sure it's going to allow me actually, unfortunately. Haven't got
That's
any.
okay.
Oh, there we go. You see that?
We can.
Sorry, I'm very unprepared and I'm all over the show because I'm jet lagged from. Weirdly, I flew from Toronto yesterday, so.
Tom, I'm not sure we have time for.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's just this video I'm showing you.
Okay,
So
as long as it's quick. We just have a couple minutes for a break, so I wanted to make sure everyone gets the break.
So that's what Ramon was saying. There you go. That's that. I believe that's your trash trap, isn't it?
It certainly is. Yes. Really nice to see.
So there you go.
Thank you. Just holding on for a couple more seconds in case anyone has any questions before we head for a little 5-minute break.
I actually have a question for Anna. So Anna, I was well done. Thanks so much, Ramon and Anna, for sharing this with us. It's amazing. What actions are you currently taking right now or planning to engage with the community? So in terms of education, if you have anything that you are planning on outreach or education with the public.
Yes, thank you, Rafaela. This is actually a crucial part from our mission. We believe that the bubble barrier can be a tool to raise and increase awareness around plastic pollution. So important part of our job is to make sure the local community is going to be engaged and going to be following up on what kind of litter is ending up in their river to make sure public policies are going to be undertaken to reduce this amount of litter. It differs a lot from project to project. So in Amsterdam, we were partnering with a local NGO to monitor the catch. In Katwijk, which is also in the Netherlands, there was the opposite way around. The other way around, a local NGO called Coastbusters. They were already doing local cleanups, and they were interested in having a technology to continuously clean the river or to reduce the amount of litter that was ending up in their beach, let's say. So they reached out to us and they mobilized the authorities around the project. In Harlingen, which is also in the Netherlands, there was a single individual that he was very annoyed with the amount of litter. He was also cleaning up by himself. And then he also reached out to the authorities to start the project. So this is a core issue for us. And the way we do depends a lot on how the project comes to us, right? So yeah, that would be a very generic answer, but we would have to go case by case. I could deep dive a bit into how we do it specifically.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think for us it's a bit similar maybe. Yeah, also we are still actively organizing cleanups, so we also have 2 cleanups coming up this month. One in Rotterdam and one actually in Amsterdam. And that's also what we try to do on most of our locations. Then of course I think also what Anna is saying, that also of course we try to tell or show people what our litter traps are actually about. So we're trying to brand our litter traps, so saying, hello, this is a litter trap. And of course also with the story to please not throw your litter into the river. And then I think mainly, or I hope that also our education and awareness program is actively contributing to that. So we are involving all systems of the educational, for all layers of the educational system. But also we try to participate in events in showcasing our work, but of course also mainly the importance of our work. And sometimes we also have the availability, but that also depends on the budget to create our own events, in the creation of workshops or in the creations of creating or organizing a seminar, to get the commitment of the local community or the local people. But always we try to inform them and get them involved as much as possible. And this is also something that we do in our foreign projects, and then for mainly Asian. So we just installed a litter trap in Vietnam. And then of course we see that also where the litter trap is, there are of course local fisher people that yeah, of course go to the river to get their fish. And now also we are collaborating with those fishermen and women, of course, to not only take the fish, but in this case also now the plastics. So in this case, we're also involving them in cleaning up the rivers and making the rivers yeah, clean and valuable again.
It's all great insight. Thank you both. So thanks to both of you once again for your presentation. We are now at the point where we were planning to have a bit of a 5-minute break, but considering we wanted to give time for Q&As and people to have a chat, we are now just going to say, if you wanted to get up and have a stretch and move around, please do. But I'm going to hand over to Susan now, who's going to be leading our workshop activities, so everyone can have even more of a chance to kind of share your thoughts and perspectives about trash trapping. So yeah, we won't judge you if you walk away from your computer for a couple of seconds. But over to you, Susan.
Okay, so I've just started sharing my screen, and feel free, I'm just going to go over what we're doing and a bit of instruction on how to use this tool. So you still have time if you need to shake things out and stretch. But I've put the link in the chat, so if you could please click that link as I'm speaking so you can have it open. And you'll see there's even a practice area that I'll get into. So this is a bit of a tutorial, but essentially what we're going to do, it's your chance now to have a bit more interaction, and it's a pretty lively group today, so that's great. And I just wanted to check in just as I started. I'm at home and someone just started drilling in the apartment above me, and I don't know if that sound is coming through or if it's just very distracting for me. Okay, perfect. So only I can hear it. All good. So what we're going to do is we have these series of interactive boards, a Google brand, so Jamboards are what they're called. But it's a place where it's a big whiteboard where you can share your thoughts, and we're going to cover some different aspects of planning and implementation for trash trapping. And our goal is to hear from all of your different perspectives on various topics, which I'll cover those topics briefly, covering motivations, collaborations, successful considerations, which we've already covered a few of those and touched on in some of the presentations. But first is how to share the Jamboard. As you can see, we have a bunch of sticky notes, and I see someone's already played around with moving it, which is great because that's going to start happening. The idea is that these sticky notes is you can type your responses. So if we run out of them, you can cut and paste a new one and start to type into it. It is a shared board, so try not to copy and cover up anyone's answers. I am going to move this one back. We're going to leave the instructions where they are. But all these things in the practice area, feel free to move that around. What I encourage you now, though, is just to type a hello in one of the empty squares, just so you can see how that works. And as you put your responses in, to avoid duplication, instead of typing the same thing someone else has, with the exception of hellos, as many as you want, we have these blue hearts. So if you see something someone shared, you're going to share the exact same thing, or you agree with it, you can just move one of these hearts there, and we'll start to kind of see the ideas that a lot of people resonate with. And we've added we'll have a bunch of hearts already on the screen, but if you need more, just cut and paste. If you make any mistakes, you can just hit Control-Z and that'll undo your last change. I'll also be keeping an eye on the board. If something starts to get out of whack, we can always correct it. But looks like everyone's kind of figuring out how to actually use the board. So, but before I get on to the 3 boards, I just wanted to check in if anyone had any questions on how to use the board. You can just type that in the chat, would be simplest. Pretty straightforward. It's designed to be straightforward. Okay. So how each board will work, and I'll explain the topics when I move. We'll have 3 different boards. We're going to spend a bit of time on each of them. First, you'll have about 3-ish minutes to enter all of your responses, and then we'll take about the same time to go over those responses, discuss a little bit, and move on to the next board. So let's just go right in. I'm going to move to the next board, so you can go back to a board if you want to add more, but let's focus first on the first one, motivation. So I'm sure we share a lot of same ones, but it'd be great to hear the myriad of reasons you might want to start a trash trapping program. I know some people here already have these programs, so think back about where you were before they began. What was it that spurred that first spark of an idea of why you wanted to implement these types of things? Of course, depending on your group type and background, I expect these will vary quite a bit. I'm going to hold off on sharing some examples because I don't want to bias any answers. I kind of want to see what people start sharing, and we can add some more prompts as needed. So go ahead, find a sticky note that doesn't have if you see a symbol next to it, that means someone's probably starting to type into that one, is what I'm noticing. So that's how you know you can pick another one. If you notice your sticky notes start to move, that's probably me trying to group things together as we go. So again, we're just thinking about all of the various motivations that you had for starting or continuing your trash trapping programs. So we'll give you about 3 minutes and then we'll check in. So I'm going to stop talking as everyone enters their responses, and feel free to use the chat at any time if you have any tech issues or clarifications needed. And I'm just going to move some of these blank ones. This is excellent so far. Everyone's gotten the hang of getting their ideas going. And once we get into the discussion too, I imagine you might start to think of a few other things as well, which is great. And again, if I move one that you were about to add to, just follow the sticky note to its new location and continue on. And Hannah, you can just let us know. Hannah's going to give us about a 30-second-ish warning when we're going to start to shift towards reviewing what's on the screen.
Your 30-second warning is now.
Okay, so get those last thoughts on the board, and we will be sharing the final visual of all of these with everyone following the webinar. Once we have the recording ready as well, those will both get shared with everyone who attended. So you're of course encouraged to share those on with those that you work with and those that you've been speaking with about trash trapping. I definitely see some similarities. Oops. What I'm going to start doing is you can add some post-its back, but I'm going to start deleting some of these empty ones. So I'm starting already to see a few themes popping through, just a little bit easier to see now. If you need to add another one in, you're welcome to. And I think we're probably near the end of the 30 seconds. So I'm just going to start describing. You can continue to type as I talk, but the three kind of grouping areas that I'm already seeing here is cleanup, of course, is the main one. And there's various components to cleanup. So having your cleanups, but extending them to new areas or being able to further expand based on time, that could mean various things. And if at any point, those of you who've shared want to elaborate on their thoughts in the chat, that's highly encouraged. So starting locally to increase those efforts, these top two are very similar, which is great. And also the types of trash and litter that you're collecting from various size, that ones that are very difficult to remove. Being able to do these cleanups on a longer time frame, so more continuously. And then I'm going to group this one maybe with kind of in the middle here, theme-wise. So there's cleanup. There's a lot here about awareness in different capacities. And then there's this data component, which of course there's overlap between all of these themes, but I really like what's shared here, of course, because this data here can help inform these two on the right here. So policy is very much informed by data. And policy also has a lot of components towards awareness to all various levels of stakeholders, and can look at what the future actions are. So there's that monitoring aspect of as well. I'll just check in with Hannah in terms of discussion if you want us to stay on this one or move on to the next.
Feel free to move on. This is great though. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and we will share this. And after we've moved on to the next one, you can still go back and look if you want to, sit with these answers a little bit longer. This link will still be live, but we will share a final record of these with everyone. This is just an idea generation component. Okay. So now we're going to shift on to collaborators. So thinking about all of the various facets to a trash trapping program, we know there's a lot of different components. Who, if you're starting one, and thanks already for jumping in with answers, it's pretty straightforward. Collaborators, who would you envision collaborating with? Who are you already collaborating with? So when you envision this, who would you like to involve in a trash trapping program? We don't get into the why, but the why can help inform, the types of reasons you would have a collaborator as part of the group. And already, it was nice to hear even from the last presentation, one of the other attendees mentioning that their boats collect what is removed by that trap. So that's already a great live example right here in the webinar of a collaboration. Oh, a big heart for that one. So that's great. Yeah, if you want to make the heart bigger, no worries there. So I'm going to stop talking as everyone enters for the next few minutes, and I may start to move some of these around, or these ones may stay where they are because it's a lot of different amazing groups. These ones closer together. I'm not sure. It may be also a regional thing, but port authorities, water authorities may be one and the same, but I'm going to leave them separately in case they are distinct groups. So I see we've had some of touching on industry and local businesses, manufacturers being added here. So I'm going to group these two together. Let me just move this way over here. So already what I'm starting to see here theme-wise is there's kind of that government aspect, of course, and that can be at various levels from local governments to, well, local and municipalities are, I think all of those hearts were together. I think in short, everyone likes every answer, which is great. So I won't dwell too much on how many hearts are in each square. I'm looking more at the overall spread of different types of collaborators, but we have, of course, who are working within the community, whether that's from a government level to organizations, from environmental NGOs to universities. And of course, volunteers are a common thread through a lot of many groups, which is amazing. And within communities, of course, we have those local businesses, various industries that can contribute to products that we find in these traps, but also to creating these traps or collaborating with them on the solution for the traps. The solution for what we're finding in the traps. Users of those waterways, so local marinas as well, everyone who's enjoying the water, a lot of them spend their time at local marinas or nature areas. Of course, that links us into our port and water authorities. I think we may spend a little bit of time after this webinar reorganizing these because this one has so many great ideas. I want to have a bit more time to really sit with and think of these larger themes, but it looks like we have a good cross section of individuals to community to larger, more government and or industry business scaled groups, landowners also community-wise. So I think this is great. I think what it's showing us is it takes a lot of different groups to run a successful program. And so collaboration is a really strong point and very core to trash trapping. So now I'm going to shift on to our last topic, and we just cut it off at 3. We know there's various other elements, but we'll get into a little bit more of this with Hannah's next talk. Is now thinking about what does it take for a successful program. So you have your motivations, you know why and why you want to run a program. You have individuals and organizations to collaborate with. So now let's think about some additional considerations to make sure this program is running smoothly and has the positive impact that motivated you to begin in the first place. So this is a very broad category. So we'd love to see what types of thoughts you have sharing. And of course, yes, the financial side is a very core element to any project, but especially trash trapping. So we can absolutely talk more about how to approach that based on what level of funding you're at. And I did see an earlier question, I think from Sarah, about all the things, how long it takes for a program. And it's also in terms of funding, it doesn't need to start off right away. I believe it was, I'm going to go way back in the chat. I think it was depending on once the budget's available, you can implement in about 6 months or so. So that's going to vary. So now I will stop talking as everyone else continues to share some amazing insight. And I can make this a little bit smaller so we have more space. So it's not even just about the budget, but that initial funding as well as the continuing funding, which is actually a really great point when you are budgeting or fundraising, whether it's potentially it's a grant that funds off your project, but that may be for a defined period of time. So thinking about beyond that funding, how to continue the program. I love all of these. I really appreciate what someone has just added the same goal or goals in the middle. It's really important that everyone working, this ties back to collaboration, also believes in the project and shares your same value that can go to your values as well, so that you're all in this kind of for that same shared goal. It really creates a stronger collaboration and really solidifies that your motivations are true and authentic to your project. Okay, I'm going to take a moment to review the other ones. I see a lot have been added since I was talking away. So I'm seeing a few themes from like more of the philosophical kind of collaboration side of things to a few very practical ones. So funding is a very, very practical one that you'll need to think about, as well as on the operational side, making sure that your traps are not going to break, or if they do, that you have some kind of maintenance plan. So this future-proofing capacity for storms or other types of environmental considerations. Maybe there's no storm, but the river flow is very strong for your trap. So thinking about that design and the area that you have chosen. Looking at your goals for data collection and sharing. I'm just going to start reading some of these out, and then you can kind of see the connections here. Going back to what we were just talking about, thinking about the collaboration with your own local administration, municipality. And again, if anyone wants to elaborate in the chat on what they've shared, please do so. Engagement, so not just having your own collaborators working on the project, but having engagement from those who are using the space that you have added this trap, so that they are also engaged and believe in your projects. Thinking about that behavior change. So the trash trap is a great part of the solution, but it's not the only part. It also works hand in hand with behavior change and awareness. So having that communication to make that connection from what you're finding to different strategies people can use with that information. And then that goes into this here right next to an involvement from the community, community being very proud of what you're doing so that there's buy-in to the project. And this meaningful data and evaluation is so great, because that data, having a meaningful side to it, shows that you're not just collecting data to have data, but you're actually using it in some very meaningful ways, which also coincidentally can help secure more funding, hopefully, to show the power of your data. Getting some various high commitment from local government, but I think that could also apply to a lot of other groups, but government is a really great decision maker. With your collaborators and target groups, having clear communication is so essential. I see, I'm just going to move this one here, support from local people. So just having that buy-in and local support. Operational, again, I'm jumping back and forth. I think we're going to wrap up shortly, and then Hannah's really going to dive into a little bit of well, I'm not going to give it away, but Hannah's going to give you a little bit more insight to some of these things you've shared here. Having people to empty the trap. So you're collecting the trap, but you need the people to collect what's inside. And I'm going to end on this last one. What is very essential to think about with your motivations? What are the pollution items you're trying to collect? There's so many different designs of traps. So what is the best type of design for what you tend to find? And continually using your data to monitor if that is still effective, or if we're or not. Okay, so this link is still live, and so we'll continue on with the workshop. I'll turn it back over to Hannah, unless you want to share any final thoughts here. But please feel free, of course, listen to Hannah for the remaining presentations, but you can continue to add to this throughout the workshop, and we'll send a copy of it afterwards. So thank you so much for your ideas. It's been amazing to hear from everyone.
Thanks, everyone. That was great. Yeah, you can go back, as Susan said, you can go back and have a little look. But I'm going to just, now we've got that, all those ideas, it was interesting to see actually what some of your perspectives were on motivations and considerations and stakeholders, because I'm going to talk a bit about those now, and some of the things. I won't be able to get through all of it, because as you can see from that, there's a lot. But I will try and touch on some of the things that we've learned through our time in trapping trash and leading the network. And so I'm now going to share, hopefully it works, the recipe for trapping trash. So I wanted to start with this. You're probably confused as to why I've got a cake ingredients on this slide. And that's because we like to think about trapping trash a bit like making a cake. There are many different ingredients that need to be combined together in the right proportions so that your cake comes out fluffy and delicious, And these ingredients and proportions and specifics might differ from cake to cake or trash trapping program to trash trapping program. But following a recipe is a great way to ensure that your cake comes out as you'd like it, or as your project will come out as you'd like it. So that's why we call it the recipe. So if you're attending this workshop, it's most likely that you have a trash problem in your area. And sometimes it can feel quite overwhelming in thinking about where to start in tackling this problem. And that's where we try to be here to help. So through our experiences in tracking trash and speaking with lots of different groups that are searching for advice and information to get started, we've developed several resources that are free, available on our website. And one of those is a project checklist, which is essentially a step-by-step guide with key steps to think about for tracking trash success. So these can all be kind of considered and completed in a different order to how I'll talk about them today, and even how they're included on this document. But whatever order you do them in, it's essential to carry out thorough planning before purchasing and installing a trash trap to ensure that your project is both impactful and sustainable. So one important initial step is to obviously identify a suitable location for your trash trap. And this will differ for every location because every watershed is different. So depending on your region, there might be multiple sources of plastic waste. And there also might be hotspots and sites of transport and also sinks. So source points are obviously a great place to put a trash trap because you can capture and remove the litter before it travels further downstream or further away from the source. Sites of plastic transport are usually quite clear pathways where plastic moves from one location to another. Rivers are a great example of this, and you can intercept the waste through sites of plastic transport. So traps can be positioned there too. Hotspots are where trash tends to accumulate at large rates, but it might not be its final destination. So if it's left untouched, it could always, with rain events and things like that, or strong winds, it might move out of that hotspot into another location. And then there are also sinks, which is the endpoint for the litter. So often where it accumulates in large quantities and doesn't really move from there for a long time. So these different sites can overlap, and some might be both, and some might be, they might lead into one another, but putting your trash trap in any of these will still make an impact. It's just your decision which one you think will be the most suitable for you to have the greatest impact with your trash trap. At this stage, it's also useful to reach out to others for information on sites and conditions in your area. So for example, you can reach out to local or regional organisations to see if they have a watershed assessment or even data on plastic pollution in the area if you're not already one of those organisations that's collecting that data. And that can help you understand maybe certain outflows of plastic waste, even certain common pollutants that are found, or the dominant type of pollution that is found in your environment, because this can often affect the decision on what type of trash trap you choose. Because I mentioned earlier, some are better suited for larger debris, some are better suited for microplastics. So it's important to consider. Researchers are also working really hard to develop models to predict surface transport of plastic pollution and identify where those hotspots are, where it's accumulating the most. But until they're more widely available, we've developed an easy method to determine where to place your trash trap and get the most bang for your buck, as we say. So we call this our visual audit protocol. And it really is meant to be simple, and it's meant to just give you a really good visual idea of where your trash is accumulating. So using a visual audit, you visually observe the plastic pollution present in your local environment. So this can be, say, for example, if you're on a lake, like we are in this example along the Toronto harbourfront, we looked and counted and documented the trash that we were seeing floating on the water surface from the side of the water. And you can record the types and the amounts of plastic that you see. And you can do this on one occasion, but we would advise you to do it a few times throughout a year or a season, just so you can get a more realistic understanding of how litter accumulates and how this changes throughout the year, or even after rainfall events and things like that. This will also help you decide on the type of device you might consider. So for example, should it be a mobile device and go to lots of different locations because it's your litter's accumulating in lots of different spots in one area, or should it be stationary because you have just one hotspot of accumulation in your environment, or should you have one large device or several smaller ones? So lots of different things to consider for this, but the protocol, you can find it on our website for you to download and use. I'll try not to repeat that sentence too much about things being on our website, but you know where they are, and we'll share the link at the end of the workshop. So next, you'll need to think about environmental conditions. This is really important. So firstly, there are things like, what are the wind and water currents like? Things like changes of season. So for example, in Toronto, where the U of T trash team are based and where our trash traps are, during the winter months, the Lake Ontario freezes over, so we can't have our traps in the water there because they won't work. So we take them out at certain times of year. So this will help you think about, thinking about those kind of things will help you think about what type of devices might be more feasible for your conditions. Another really important consideration is potential interactions with biota, so organic matter and wildlife. So trash traps are installed and used in natural environments, so there is likely to be some interaction with wildlife or organic matter. Sometimes this is not a problem. So for example, in Toronto, our sea bins, they capture floating macrophytes along with the plastic debris that we capture. And when we noticed this was happening, we consulted with local conservation organisation and the port authorities, and both concluded that it was not a concern for them because the plants were detached from their original structure before we were capturing them in the sea bin, so they were floating. And the port authority were quite happy about it because we were removing the plants that usually get entangled on people's boat propellers, so it was kind of a benefit for them. But obviously sometimes this interaction can be harmful, and of course we want trash traps to have a positive impact, not a negative one. So this is something you should think really carefully about prior to device purchase or implementation, and even once you've got the trap in the water. This should be regularly monitored because obviously things change throughout the seasons and over time. So collecting data on this is also a really great thing to do. Other than considerations about natural environment, there are also logistical considerations. So for example, do you have sufficient and safe access to the device for waste removal and maintenance? And if your trash trap requires an energy source or a power source, is there one nearby your ideal location for where you want to put it? So these are all things you can think about. This is not the complete list, but this is just a few things to get you thinking. You also need to obviously decide on what trap you want. And there are lots of different things to think about. I've mentioned environment. I've kind of mentioned target pollutant, so microplastics or macroplastics, or is it something that's floating on the surface, or is it a plastic item that sinks to the bottom, as the bubble barriers mentioned, they're really great for debris that's sunk from the surface. And then there's lots of other things. So cost, what's your budget? How much will the trap cost to purchase, to install, and then to maintain every year? Things like maintenance, how often does it need to be emptied or serviced? Do you have the time for that? What's your capacity? What's the capacity of the device? So some of them, sea bins, for example, which we started off with in Toronto, have quite a small capacity. And during the summer months, we have to empty them almost daily. So that obviously requires a lot of people power and time. And if you don't have that, then you might want something that needs to be emptied every couple of weeks, or even some trash traps can be left for longer than that, months at a time before being emptied. Visibility is also another one. So do you want it to be really clearly visible to the public? I would say in most cases, yes, but sometimes people don't mind them being hidden and quite want to just kind of clean up without drawing too much attention to the trap. So that's another consideration. These are some of the things, and there's still a lot of options even when you've narrowed these things down. So from talking to different groups, we realized that people would like a device directory, which we've made, which is essentially a list of lots of different technologies that are currently in use around the world, and it's got information on how they work, what environments they are used in, cost if that information is available, and then manufacturer information so you can reach out to them to gain insight. So I would also recommend, if you think you like the sound of a particular trash trap and you think it could work for you, it's always worth reaching out to the manufacturers for more information, because as we've seen with Ramon's presentation, they often manufacturers will kind of adapt the trap for different scenarios. So it's great to get an idea of where you want it and then speak to the manufacturer about how it might work or if it's possible. It's also really useful to reach out to other groups that might have already used the device. So you can ask them questions about their experience with it, mechanics, how much it actually cost them in reality, and logistics. So I would always recommend that too, to talk to other people. In speaking of talking to other people, we mentioned earlier about stakeholder collaboration. So we found through experience that doing it alone might seem simpler, but collaborating with multiple different stakeholders can really lead to a successful project, because you're bringing in lots of different skills and interests and combining them. So to start off, obviously think about local stakeholders in your region. So it could be, we've heard of lots earlier in the activity, so a marina, local government, volunteer groups, NGOs, businesses, even waterway users. And each can have a really important role to play. And it's important that each stakeholder knows what their role is and has agreed to it. Different roles for different stakeholders vary between projects, depending on what specific organizations would like to do or what their interest is. But one example is maintenance. So who knows how the device functions? Is there someone who can fix it if there's a technical issue? Is there someone who will be checking it to make sure it's running effectively? Another role is who will be emptying your trap. As I mentioned, some traps require emptying quite regularly. So if that does happen, it's best to have someone who's dedicated to that role and will be there before it gets too full. Another example is who will be collecting the data. So who will be emptying the trap, but also who will be documenting the weight, the item counts, the categories of the debris that you're collecting. And what will you do with that data? Will it be shared by these people, or will it be sent to someone else, potentially a university group to use it for research, or it could be a school group that might want to use it for one of their lessons. There's lots of different options. So sharing data and collaborating with others is always great. And then also thinking about who will be sharing about your project with your local community. So for example, organizing events for community members or opportunities for volunteers to come and help you with trapping trash. And finally, last but not least, is funding. So a lot of you mentioned that in the activity. Really important to think about right at the very start, how much money do you have? Funding for short and long term. So think about maintenance, how long your funding might last in terms of if you have to pay staff to assist with the project, and always useful to think about alternative routes for when funding might be low, or if your funding term comes to an end, if you're on a grant or something like that. But that is a big issue for a lot of groups. A lot of groups are really keen to get a trash trap from our experience, but then the funding becomes a barrier. So it's a very common problem. A great way to connect with other potential collaborators is firstly workshops like this. So thank you all for coming, and I hope if you've seen any names of people you want to chat to on the list of participants today, then it would be great if we facilitated some connections today. But also we know a lot of organizations through running the network. So if you wanted to hear about any other groups that have used a particular device, or you're looking for collaborators in a certain area, you can always reach out to us. We can do our best, try and connect you with the right people. We've done that in the past. And also we have, I know it's a bit of a dying platform, but we have a Facebook group, and you can join that. And a lot of people have joined that and share kind of their, if they have a question about a certain type of trap, or they just want to share about what they're doing, and you can connect with people that way too. And so it can be a great starting point for collaborations. So with the appropriate planning, you can then feel confident that the logistics are run smoothly, and then you can begin to think about actually implementing your program and getting stuck into the good stuff, so actually cleaning up. So along with our resources for planning, the ITTN has also developed resources to support your program in action, and I'm going to run through a couple of those now before I hand over to Sarah. So just a bit of insight, this photo is what is collected by the trash wheel that I mentioned earlier. It's in Baltimore Harbour, so it collects like dumpsters or skips worth of rubbish every, like, sometimes if it's raining, like every week or so. So just an example of a trap that captures a huge amount of waste. So I mentioned this earlier, we feel that talking to people about the trash trap is really important. It provides context for its use, so people don't think, oh, they're cleaning up, we don't have to do anything. It gives them a bit more broader context as to why you're doing it, how it might be part of a broader strategy. You can also use it as a centerpiece to encourage people about plastic pollution and motivate them to either join you and help out with your efforts or take their own actions. And so that's really important. This also, we've also developed resources to assist with this. So we've made posters that you can download and add your logos to and edit and position by your trap so people can learn about your trap and it being part of this kind of broader initiative if you're part of the network. And you can also make your own signs like we saw earlier with Inspector Seabin. And we've seen lots of really fun ones throughout the network. To support more education-based programming, we've also recently, or last year, I guess, we developed an educator's guide, which is full of lots of different fun activities that can be carried out with younger audiences, but also adapted for adults too. One example is a guided trash trap dive. So that's where we invite community members to come and help us empty out our traps and sort through the waste and collect data with us. So we host that event on the waterfront throughout summer. And people really like getting up close and kind of handling the waste and getting really stuck in, and it's always really good fun. We can also provide guidance on volunteer events, or even connect you. If you've seen someone do something you think it seems like a really great idea, we can connect you with those people and hopefully share some information so we're not reinventing the wheel. Lastly, and definitely not definitely important, is measuring the success of your trash trapping program. So we, when we first started the ITTN, this is one of our goals, was to harmonize data collection. And we wanted to create protocols that were easy to use from anyone from community volunteers to scientists. And these are specific to trash trapping. So we have 2 protocols that the ITTN has developed, and you can choose which one you'd like to use depending on your time and your people power and also your data collection goals. So we have firstly the simple protocol, which is carried out each time you empty your device. And using this method, you can document the weight of debris collected and some other information about your trap and where it is. On the other end of the scale, we have the detailed protocol, and we recommend to carry this out at least 5 to 10 times per year, just to see what you're collecting across the seasons and how this changes. Using this method, you can document both the mass and the count of both large and small debris. So we divide this into macro debris, which is above 2.5 centimeters, and then micro debris below 2.5. And using this method, you can capture more detailed data, and this allows you to understand the quantities of different types of litter in your waterway, and then you can use this to identify most common pollutants and potentially inform sources and solutions. These are all available online, and they can be adapted to different types of traps. And please let us know, email us if you want any assistance with this or you want any more information about the methods that we've developed for this. So we have currently 2 options for recording data. We have classic paper data sheets that you can print off and use in the field. These are free and these can be downloaded from our website. Say again. And then we also have, as of earlier this year, we have the CleanSort app. So this has been used by Ocean Conservancy for several years now to collect and report data for the International Coastal Cleanup, which is one of the largest volunteer cleanup event globally, run by Ocean Conservancy. And I might pass over to Sarah now, so she can give us a little bit of more information about CleanSort and a short demo of tides. So I will pause there.
Thank you, Hannah.
No problem.
All right, seamless transition to the exact same slide that we were just on. We planned that. Thanks everyone. It's great to see some familiar faces on the line. And I, very last little portion of this workshop. I know we're wrapping up at the top of the hour here, but we do want to share some exciting updates that are kind of part of Ocean Conservancy's data collection app. So I think many of you are quite familiar with data collection, so we don't need to go into too much detail there. A few of you are seasoned pros with CleanSwell as well, but if it's new to you, feel free to give it a download. This is our free open access data collection reporting tool, and it's been around for about 8 years. But the most recent update that we were very excited to launch with the ITTN is this route within the app, or this cleanup option, that instead of doing or recording data via your traditional volunteer cleanup on foot or on watercraft, there is a specific route to enter your metrics, the data collected, the results from the trash trap protocols that Hannah just mentioned, either the simple or the detailed. Both of them exist on the CleanSwell app now. So we hope that it will be an even easier, more efficient way to kind of streamline that data collection process. Of course, you still have the paper data card option there in the form, and then you could put that into the app if you would like, but we do like to utilize a lot of the tools and technology that exists in these mobile applications, such as allowing location services, so that we know exactly where your trash trap is located, where you're collecting data. So that's an important metric that we like to emphasize. And the app is available in a number of languages too, so we hope that that kind of helps reduce any of the barriers that might exist with your data collectors. And we do talk to partners in the network who utilize volunteers and even youth volunteers to help them with these data collection processes, as Hannah just mentioned. And just sharing a couple of screenshots. I won't go through the whole the app process. You can do that yourself. You can actually do a test cleanup if you would like. There is this group name field. So if you do a test cleanup, put test right there. But you'll see here that we have an example of how you can actually utilize your organization or your trash trap collection team name, however you'd like to use that, to be those identifier words there in the group name. And just like any other cleanup through CleanSwell, this allows us to then go into the online open access database where all of these data feed into and search for your group's entries, so that you can quickly gather all of the trash trap data from your season, from your month, from the year, whatever you would like. And you can look at just your team or your traps data, but then you can also look and compare it to other data as well. So like Hannah mentioned earlier, all about data harmonization. And this process, you know, the route within the app is a little bit more detailed than the traditional cleanup route. If you've done that on CleanSwell before, there's a few more questions that are asked. It does ask the same metrics that are on the protocol that Hannah shared. So they are one and the same, they're the exact same. But it's a bit more detailed, and we're really just trying to make sure that whether you have a small device, maybe it's in a storm drain system, or maybe you have a large trash wheel, that we can still kind of capture and compare data in a similar fashion. So that's basically what the app is kind of walking you through screen by screen. You'll see here's another screen at the very end of your trash collection protocol. There is a chance to kind of review everything that you've input, just like our traditional cleanup route. And then you can go in, verify the data, double check everything, and then kind of hit submit and save those data. And they will, like I mentioned, go off into an online database that I believe I have on the next screen here. Yes, so this is Tides. Again, many of you are familiar with this. The URL is up at the top of the screen, and we can also share this in our follow-up materials. And just for the sake of time, I might not hop over to the system, but we do have a webinar that Hannah and I just ran, kind of showing this whole process of from opening the app, doing your data collection process, all the way to finding where that data entry might exist in this online database. So we can share that recording with you in the chat there. But if you do have any questions about Tides, CleanSwell, you can get in touch with Hannah or I, and we can help answer any of those questions that you have. We know that relying on a tool and a platform that you don't specifically own can feel a little bit like you're losing like a little bit more control of your data. And we definitely don't want that to be the case. We want you to feel like you have direct access to any of the trash trap collecting data that you collect with your teams, and to be able to compare that to other data around the world. So what you'll see in Tides, there's one new addition. If you're familiar with it, there's a viewing report section. And up at the top now, there's a drop-down menu where you can search for entries submitted by traditional cleanups on CleanSwell, but then there's also a filter for trash traps only. So what it will do is it'll update this global map that you see here with all these cleanup entries, and it will just show the pin entries from trash traps specifically. So this is a very new, I think just a few months old addition to this platform and to the app. So we've been very excited to roll it out this season, and many partners within the network are already utilizing CleanSwell and Tides instead of the paper data cards. So hopefully saving some time there. I think that's all I have for slides. I'll probably just stop sharing my screen. I know we went through the data collection quickly there. Oh, Hannah, thank you for dropping the webinar recording in the chat.
No problem. Yeah, sorry, Sarah. I think I got carried away, so we ended up being tight on time, but that was perfect. And we can share after the workshop some links, people to go and watch that video, and also to see some of the demo video for CleanSwell. So sorry, see my notes. I just wanted to put this quick slide up at the end, just to close up the workshop, just to share a few links for everyone, and also we have some that we can share in the chat before you leave. So we just wanted to say also thank you so much for joining us today. Firstly, to our guest speakers, Ramon and Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to attend and present about your projects and your experiences. And we also want to thank all of you for attending the workshop, and we hope you found it informative and insightful. We hope this is not the last time that we speak with all of you, so if you want to get in touch, please email us with any further questions or questions about any of our resources or about any of the conversations we've had today. It's info@trashtrapnetwork.org, and you can also go on our website trashtrapnetwork.org and access all of those free resources that I mentioned earlier. And you can download the CleanSwell app for free and start using it whenever you like for community cleanups or trash trap cleanups as well. So yeah, thank you so much once again, and we hope to keep in touch.